Okay, welcome back. Let's start going into some of the underlying principles of this work now. I want to talk a little bit about the first two axioms to get some foundation, because that's what all this work is based on, and we're constantly saying that our consciousness is causing our experience and that we're causing our experience, and we need to have a deeper understanding and a deeper clarity on that so that we can realize it at some point. So the first axiom is that God is consciousness expressing itself as our individual consciousness. Does everybody have their phones muted, please? Somebody's phone is not muted. Please *6 your phones, everybody. Okay, the first axiom is that God is consciousness expressing itself as our individual consciousnesses. And that axiom says it's all spiritual. It says that God is consciousness, not something material, and expressing itself as our individual consciousnesses. So I want to start out by talking about what consciousness is, and let's see if we can get a handle on that. So I made a few notes, and I don't know whether we're going to stay with them or not, but we all, right now, have the experience of and know that we are conscious. There's traditionally 3 levels of consciousness that they talk about in the East. There's the waking state of consciousness, and the dreaming state of consciousness, and sleeping state, which is unconscious, okay? So that's what we mean by consciousness. We're talking about this consciousness, and another word for it is awareness. This awareness, okay. The joke is that this is the F workshop, EFF, and that consciousness is ineffable, which means not definable. So ineffable means that there's no possible way to define it or explain it or describe it. It's a word that can't be explained. So I'm about to try to explain the ineffable in the F workshop. That's just perfect. But we are conscious. We're aware of that fact. And I'm going to use the word awareness and the word consciousness as meaning the same thing. And incidentally, I'm going to use the word spirit to mean the same thing. We've always heard, that God is spirit, or this is spiritual, or there's spirit and there's material and all that, and I never really knew what spirit meant. And what it means is consciousness. It's this consciousness that we have right now, and that's what it means when it says God is spirit. Means the same thing as God is consciousness. Okay? And by awareness, it's just another way talking about consciousness. Now we're talking more or less about the content of consciousness. Typically, we talk about awareness. I'm aware of things. I'm aware of you people. I'm aware of what I hear. I'm aware of the flowers and the Buddha on the mantle up there. I can be aware of any material thing that I happen to be aware of, and the stuff that's behind me that's quiet, I'm not aware of, unless it has a fragrance. So it's very clear what I mean by aware and not aware. And we're also aware of mental stuff, mental things. We're aware of our thoughts. We're aware of of any of the mental gymnastics that our own brains seem to go through. So we're aware of what mental things are. And we're also aware of spiritual things. We're aware of love. We're aware of peace. We're aware of harmony. We're aware of all these things that don't have any materiality to them, and they're not specifically a thought. They are something that we may think about. In fact, we have to think about it since they're not material to be aware of them. But we're aware of peace and harmony and love and joy and delight and hate and all these various things that are not mental. And let's go one more step further, which is another spiritual thing that we're aware of. We're all aware right now that we're aware. Is that true? I mean, I'm aware that I'm aware. So now there's a step back. The question is, who's aware that I'm aware? You know, there's awareness of my awareness. And we're not going to answer that question right now, but this is a thing to keep in mind, that there's a level of there. I'm conscious of the fact that I'm conscious. I'm aware of the fact that I'm aware. There seems to be this immediate awareness, and there's a step back. And I remind you that the first axiom says that God is consciousness expressing itself as our individual consciousness. So what I'm suggesting is that the awareness that's aware that it's aware, or the awareness with which I'm aware that I'm aware, might be the God awareness that's expressing itself as my individual awareness. Okay? There's a higher level of awareness there that's expressing itself, that's individualized as this package's awareness. And it's aware that I'm aware. And I will just go one more little tiny step further. Just think about the possibility of what does awareness mean if you're not aware of something? Is there such a thing as awareness without content? What does it mean? What does it mean to be conscious and not conscious of something? And maybe that's what consciousness with a capital C is, or awareness with a capital A is. Maybe that's the consciousness that's expressing individually, or maybe not. Maybe that's just my story. So that's what we mean when we use the word consciousness. People say, well, what do you mean by consciousness? And we're talking about the consciousness that you're familiar with, the everyday consciousness that we're all aware of, that we have when we're awake and that we don't have when we're asleep, and we have when we're dreaming, but it's a different kind of awareness, but we're aware of our dreams. And the me in my dream is aware of the content of the dream too. Now, when I talk about I, when I use the pronoun I, when I talk about I, what am I talking about? Am I talking about the body, this body? Or am I talking about this awareness? And I think if you spend some time on this proposition, you'll realize that I have a body. I'm not the body. Joel Goldsmith does a wonderful thing about examining your body. I'm not in my foot. If you cut off my foot, I'd still be here. If you cut off my leg, I'd still be here. If you cut off my whole body at the waist, I'd still be here. If you cut off the arms, the ears, etc. You can take any part of my body off of me, and I'm still here. So I am not the body. I happen to have a body, or I think I do at least. And similarly, with the mental stuff that I'm aware of, emotions, feelings, all that sort of stuff, and thoughts and ideas, sometimes I have them, sometimes I don't, and I'm no different. Whether I have them or don't, I feel different, Lee feels different, the body feels different, but I'm no different. There's an awareness here that is the awareness of all of this stuff, awareness of the body, awareness of the mental stuff, awareness of the feelings, awareness of the emotional body, if we want to get into the New Age attitude. There's this awareness here that's constant. And what I'm suggesting, and I want you to explore this, is to see whether or not that awareness is not what you really mean when you say I. I had an understanding many years ago. I recalled an incident that happened when I was like 6, and I fell out of a tree and got the wind knocked out of me. But was very shocking. I'd never had the wind knocked out of me or fall. I probably fell all of 4 feet or something like that, but it was a long distance, and I had the wind knocked out of me. And I still have a clear memory of that shocking experience, you know. And it's very clear to me that the I that I was when I had that experience and the I that I am right now are exactly the same I, that there's no difference, okay? That the I is this unchanging consciousness that I have of this changes and of this knowledge that's expanding and of this getting corrected and all that. And I became aware when that happened to me that this I, that I am, when I talk about I, has been constant throughout my entire life. And you know, when I think about it, when I think about how old am I, you know, I don't feel the age of this physical body. I have, you know, 10 different ages I could tell you that I feel are equally true as the age of this body. The age of this body is not my age. So what I'm suggesting is that the I we're talking about is the consciousness that I have, okay? And your I is your consciousness.
I have a question.
Yeah, please. Jump in, always.
You were talking about your I as a little boy and your I now is the same, and that physical changes and mental changes, but the consciousness hasn't really changed. But don't we change our consciousness? I mean, isn't that why we're here all the time?
The content of it changed. Now I'm talking about like the awareness without the stuff it's aware of, or the consciousness that without the stuff it's being conscious of. I mean, the content of my consciousness changes radically every day. I go outside and the content of my consciousness is different than it is when I'm inside, but I don't change. If I read a book, it may expand my understanding, but I don't change. The content of my consciousness changes, certainly. But I'm arguing that the I that I am is this constant background consciousness, that what I really mean by I is this consciousness that I am that has a mind and thoughts and experiences and emotions and feelings, and it has a body, which certainly contributes to the emotions and the feelings, and has been trained and conditioned and educated and told right and wrong and taught and et cetera, but that happened to the I that fell out of the tree when he was 6, which is the same I as this I. It's just the content has changed. The consciousness is still here, and that is what we mean by the individual consciousness. God is expressing itself as our individual consciousnesses. Okay. By the way, I want to reiterate what I said last week. You are not expected to buy or believe any of this. What I would like you to do is help me make it clear enough to you that you understand what I'm saying. And that's the end of it. If you understand what I'm saying, that's all I want to accomplish, and then you can discover through your own going within and your own introspection and your own whatever, whether or not it's true. Okay? But I want you to understand these things, because these are the things that will give us some clarity and allow us to do the lifting work that will make the script and kid work and a lot of the other work that we're doing possible. And the second axiom is our individual experience of life is determined by the content of our individual consciousness. And I expressed that last week as consciousness is experience. And that one is just really obvious once I point it out, or once it's pointed out to you, once you see it. If I'm conscious of something, it means I am, in the instant that I'm aware that I'm conscious of it, having an experience of it. I'm conscious of that Buddha because I see it. I'm conscious of that breeze because I feel it. And I'm conscious of these words because I'm hearing them, okay? I'm conscious of whatever I'm experiencing. And if I'm not conscious of it, I'm not having the experience of it. I mean, all that stuff's going on while I'm asleep. I'm in the sleeping state, the not conscious state. all that same stuff is going on, and I'm not conscious of it because I'm not experiencing it. I'm asleep, okay? So everything that I'm conscious of, it's because I'm experiencing it in some sense or another, either mentally or physically or through one of my five senses or intuition or something. I'm conscious of it. And the flip side of that is that in order for me to be experienced, in order for me to have an experience, I need to be conscious of that experience. There's no experiences that are my experiences in this moment that I'm not conscious of. I mean, there may be, theoretically it's possible that there are all sorts of experiences going on that I'm not conscious of, but they're not my experiences, okay? So my consciousness, I'm conscious of everything I experience, and I'm experiencing everything that I'm conscious of. If I'm not experiencing of it, I'm not conscious of it, and if I'm not conscious of it, I'm not experiencing of it. And you see that the axiom isn't quite right. My individual experience is not determined by the content of my individual consciousness. My individual experience is the content of my individual consciousness. The content of my consciousness literally is my experience. And that's the foundation upon which a lot of the future stuff we're going to be talking about is based. So play with that. There's a book out there in the dining room called Dream On, which I put together a year or so ago, talking with people about this, you know. And what it is it's a lot of little vignettes about comparing. If I'm having a dream and there's a me in the dream, what I'm doing is comparing the me in the dream's relationship to the dream with my out here relationship to consciousness, okay? And there's like 15 or 17 little vignettes, and they all focus on one particular point of what consciousness is about. And, you know, the topics include space and time and omnipresence and omnipotence and omniscience and all these things, and you might play with them. They're sort of fun, and each one's sort of a page long, and they might be useful for you to think about and get some deeper insight into what we're talking about here. Gee, time just flies when you're having fun. Okay, to make it short, if I want my experience to change, what I have to do is change my consciousness. I mean, I can't change my experience without changing the source of my experience, which is my consciousness. The analogy I used to use in some of the classes around here is if you walked up in front of a mirror and thought you looked really pale, you would not reach out and put lipstick on the mirror. You would put lipstick on yourself or put makeup on yourself. Changing the out there isn't the answer. Changing the source of the image in the mirror is the right thing to do. The image in the mirror is a reflection of what's here, and my experience out here is a reflection of what's in here in my consciousness, which is externalized, apparent. And I'm going to say one or two more things. The strongest things in my consciousness are my death fears, any traumas. The stronger the fear, the more it's determining my experience, because my consciousness is my experience. So the stronger the fear I have, the more I have out here what that fear looks like to me. And the fact that I have this fear of something happening means that I have to be experiencing it. And the other thing is that my fantasies, which we'll get to in a short time, is the strongest desire in my consciousness. Okay? So the other side of this is that my experience continually includes my pursuing my fantasies. So there's a lot of our life if we're not aware of this mechanism of this phenomenon, is devoted to trying to avoid our fears, resistance behaviors, and chasing our fantasy behaviors. Okay, so I guess that's enough to be said about this right now. I really hope you will look at the Dream On booklet. It's sort of a fun thing and might give you some real insight into this.